I uncovered my husband and his manipulative mother's scheme, siphoning my $42,000 earnings to fund his ex, leading to an explosive birthday dinner confrontation that rocked their entire deceitful family. They say you should never mix family with money, but what about when your husband's own mother sneers at you, telling you you'll never be good enough for her precious son? That I stood up, my voice like ice, and told her, "Then tell Victoria to pay all your bills, because I am done funding your lifestyle." Her triumphant smile froze, then crumbled, replaced by pure confusion. "What money? We never got a single dollar from you." That's when the chilling realization hit me. Something was very, very wrong. Before we dive deeper into this tangled web of deceit, if you believe honesty should be a cornerstone of family, not a foreign concept, please hit that subscribe button. It truly helps bring these stories of resilience and truth to more people. Now, let's peel back the layers and uncover the truth behind my money, my marriage, and my shattering awakening. 18 months earlier, I was a different woman. A woman who still believed in the fairy tale of marrying into a difficult family that would eventually, somehow, accept me. My mornings at Sterling and Finch Financial started sharp at 7 a.m. I'd be there before the security guard even finished his coffee, taking the elevator up to my corner office on the 14th floor. The view was everything I'd worked for. Glass towers catching the sunrise, the city waking up below. My world was analyzing portfolios worth more than most people would see in 10 lifetimes, tracking derivatives, catching discrepancies that saved our clients millions. Rachel, my assistant, would bring my green tea in the Tiffany mug Alex bought me for our anniversary. "The Monroe account has some interesting movement," she'd say, and I'd dive into spreadsheets that told stories of money flowing where it shouldn't. I could spot financial fraud from 1,000 yards away in someone else's life. The irony of that still burns, even now. Alex would text around 10, usually something sweet about lunch or a reminder about dinner with his parents. He was a freelance consultant, business strategies, workflow optimization, vague descriptions that sounded impressive but generated unpredictable income. Some months, he'd land a big client, taking me to expensive restaurants to celebrate. Other months, I'd quietly cover our mortgage, his car payment, and the credit cards, never mentioning it. We'd been married 3 years, together for 5. He was charming, with dark eyes that crinkled when he laughed, and hands that always found mine in a crowd. I loved how he'd dance with me in our kitchen while dinner cooked, how he'd leave notes in my lunch bag. He made me feel chosen. Every Saturday, we'd drive to Queens to visit his parents. 40 minutes of holding hands, listening to whatever podcast he was obsessed with that week. But the moment we pulled into their building's parking lot, something would shift. His hand would slip from mine. His shoulders would tense. By the time we climbed the 3 flights to their rent-controlled apartment, he transformed into someone else's son. Arthur, his father, would answer the door with genuine warmth. "Clara, you look beautiful as always." He'd take the wine I brought. Always the same $15 Merlot Eleanor never drank, but I kept bringing anyway. The flowers I'd picked up from the corner bodega would disappear into a vase, barely acknowledged. Eleanor would be holding court in her living room, surrounded by photos of Alex from every stage of life except the recent ones that included me. She'd look up from whatever she was pretending to read and offer that tight smile that never reached her eyes. "Oh, you're here, Alex. Did you see the article about Victoria's promotion? She's doing so well at the nonprofit. Remember how she used to organize those charity galas?" And there it would begin. The Victoria Show. Victoria's new job helping underprivileged youth. Victoria's volunteer work at the animal shelter. Victoria's magical ability to make Eleanor's arthritis pain disappear just by entering the room. The woman had been gone for 4 years, but her ghost sat at every dinner table, hung in the air of every conversation. Victoria made the most amazing lasagna, Eleanor would sigh, over my carefully prepared casserole. She had this special ingredient, love. Alex would shift uncomfortably, maybe squeeze my knee under the table, but never speak up. Never say, "Mom, Clara's right here." Never mention that Victoria had cheated on him with his former best friend, which is why they'd broken up. That crucial detail had been conveniently erased from family history. The financial situation came up gradually, then all at once. First, it was comments about fixed incomes not keeping up with inflation. Then, specific mentions of medical costs. Eleanor's arthritis required injections Medicare only partially covered. Arthur's heart medication cost $300 a month after insurance. Their rent had gone up twice in 2 years, and Arthur, at 70, had started working part-time at a hardware store just to make ends meet. One Thursday evening, I was deep in quarterly reports when Alex appeared in my home office. He had that look, the one that meant he needed something but didn't want to ask. He sat on the edge of my desk, playing with my stapler. Mom called today. Dad's been skipping his medication to make it last longer. I looked up from my screen. That's dangerous. He needs those pills. I know. Alex ran his hand through his hair, a gesture I'd learned meant anxiety. They're drowning, Clara. Mom's too proud to ask for help, especially from you. But they need it. How much? Maybe $2,000 a month. Just temporarily, until they figure something out. I studied his face. There was real worry there. These were his parents. And despite Eleanor's coldness toward me, Arthur had always been kind. We can do that. There's one thing, Alex said, not meeting my eyes. Mom doesn't understand online banking, gets confused by all the technology. And Dad's pride. He can't handle taking money from his son's wife. If I could receive it and pass it along, tell them it's for my consulting work picking up. It made sense at the time. Eleanor was 71, always complaining about computers. Arthur was old school, the kind of man who still insisted on paying for dinner even when he could barely afford it. So, I agreed, setting up automatic transfers from our joint account to Alex's personal one, each carefully labeled in my spreadsheet. Eleanor's arthritis treatment, Arthur's medication, apartment maintenance. $2,000 a month, then $2,500 when the rent increased. Small amounts to someone analyzing million-dollar portfolios, but they added up. So, this was family. This was what you did for family. Even when that family spent every dinner reminding you how inferior you were to a woman who'd been gone for years. 3 months into sending money, the transfers had become as routine as my morning coffee. That March evening, we sat around Eleanor's dining table, eating pot roast that was somehow both dry and swimming in grease. The apartment smelled of overcooked vegetables and the lavender air freshener Eleanor used to mask the mustiness of old carpet. I had to skip my injection again this week, Eleanor announced, cutting into her meat with dramatic precision. These treatments are just so expensive. Sometimes I wonder if the pain is worth bankrupting us. My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. The previous Tuesday, $2,400 had left my account, specifically marked for her arthritis treatment. I turned to Alex, but he was already redirecting the conversation with practiced ease. Leo got a new motorcycle, he said, gesturing toward his younger brother. Show Clara the pictures. Leo pulled out his phone, eager to display the chrome and black Harley he'd somehow acquired despite being unemployed for 6 months. Got a great deal from a friend who needed quick cash, he explained, scrolling through photos of himself posing with a bike around Queens. Eleanor didn't seem to register the oddity of her broke son buying a motorcycle while she supposedly couldn't afford medical care. She just smiled at Leo with the warmth she never directed at me, reaching over to pat his hand. You deserve nice things, sweetheart. You've been through so much. The next few weeks brought more peculiarities. Alex's laptop, always casually open on our kitchen counter, suddenly required a password. New client contracts, he explained when I asked. They're paranoid about confidentiality, tech startup stuff. You know how it is. I didn't know how it was, actually. His consulting work, always vague, became actively secretive. Phone calls that used to happen at the kitchen table moved to the garage. Better reception out there, he claimed, though we'd never had signal problems before. Bank statements that used to pile up on our entry table started disappearing. I'd see the mail carrier deliver them, but by evening, they'd vanished. When I asked, Alex would pat my shoulder with that reassuring touch he'd perfected. I'm organizing everything for taxes. Found this new system online. You focus on your big accounts at work. I'll handle our little household stuff. Our little household stuff that included thousands of dollars flowing out monthly. Late at night, I'd wake to find a side of the bed empty. Through the crack under his office door, I could see the blue glow of his computer screen and hear the rapid clicking of keys. When I'd pad barefoot down the hallway, the typing would stop. By the time I opened the door, he'd be scrolling through sports scores or reading news articles, looking up with that easy smile. Couldn't sleep. Didn't want to wake you with my tossing and turning. One Sunday in April, Arthur scared us all. We were finishing Eleanor's dry pound cake when he stood to clear plates and swayed dangerously. His face had gone gray, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool apartment. Alex jumped up to steady him, guiding him to the couch while Eleanor fluttered around, suddenly playing the concerned wife. "I'm fine," Arthur insisted, though his hands trembled as he accepted a glass of water. "Just tired. Pulled a double at the store yesterday." "Why are you working so much?" I asked, genuinely confused. By my calculation, we'd sent $8,000 over the past 4 months, enough to cover their rent and his medications with money left over. "Bills don't pay themselves," Arthur said quietly, not meeting my eyes. Alex's hand found my knee under the coffee table, squeezing firmly. Not affectionately. A warning. When I looked at him, his expression was carefully neutral, but something in his eyes told me to drop it. The drive home that night was silent, except for the rain hitting the windshield. I watched the wipers sweep back and forth, trying to make sense of what I'd witnessed. Finally, I couldn't hold it in. "Where's the money going, Alex?" "What money?" His knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. "The money for your dad's medication, for your mom's treatments. $8,000 in 4 months, and your father's working himself into the ground." "There are other expenses," he said, his voice tight. "Things you don't know about. Old debts, medical bills from before. It's complicated. Then uncomplicated for me. Just trust me, okay? I'm handling it." Trust. Such a small word, carrying so much weight. The breaking point came during Chloe's book club. Alex's sister had insisted on hosting at our house, claiming our living room had better natural light. 7 women descended on a Tuesday evening, armed with wine bottles and opinions about a memoir none of them had actually finished. By the 3rd bottle of Pinot Grigio, Chloe had shifted from literary criticism to family gossip. Her voice carried into the kitchen where I was refilling the cheese platter. "Alex has been so good to Victoria lately," she gushed to her friend Carol. "You know she's been struggling since her boutique went under. But family helps family, right? Even exes. It's what makes the Whitmores special." My hands stilled on the brie knife. Carol made appropriate sympathetic noises. "How long were they together again?" 6 years. Can you believe it? Everyone thought they'd get married. Eleanor still has the wedding magazines she collected for them. But timing, you know. Victoria needed to find herself, and Alex needed to, well, he found Clara. The way she said my name, like I was a consolation prize Alex had settled for. I walked back into the living room, carrying the cheese plate, my face carefully arranged in hostess neutrality. "Victoria's having a hard time?" I asked casually, setting the plate on the coffee table. Chloe's eyes widened, suddenly realizing I'd been listening. The wine had made her careless. "Oh, just normal stuff. Starting over is hard." Alex mentioned, I heard somewhere that she's doing better now. Alex mentioned? No. Maybe. I don't really remember where I heard it. She was backpedaling frantically now, shooting looks at the other women for help. Probably Facebook. You know how news travels. That night, I lay in bed, listening to Alex's even breathing beside me. His sleep was peaceful, untroubled. His arm draped over my waist the way it had every night for 3 years. The same arm that held me during scary movies, that pulled me close in crowded places, that made me feel safe and chosen. But Chloe's words echoed in my mind. Family helps family, even exes. Alex has been so good to Victoria. I thought about the password on his laptop. The calls in the garage. The vanishing bank statements. Leo's motorcycle. Arthur's exhaustion. Eleanor's skipped treatments despite my payment specifically marked for them. The numbers started arranging themselves in my head the way they did when I analyzed portfolios at work. Money in, money out. Patterns and discrepancies. $8,000 over 4 months, but no visible improvement in his parents' situation. Alex's vague explanations. Eleanor's continued complaints. And now Victoria's name surfacing like a body that wouldn't stay buried. I turned to study Alex's face in the darkness. He looked younger asleep, almost innocent. The worry lines that creased his forehead during the day smoothed out at night. This was the man I'd married, who'd promised to love and cherish me, who'd stood at the altar and said I was his future. But futures, I was learning, could be built on very shaky foundations. Sleep became impossible after Chloe's wine-fueled revelation about Victoria. I spent the rest of that week moving through my days like a ghost, analyzing portfolios at work while my mind churned through possibilities. Alex noticed nothing. Still kissing me goodbye each morning. Still texting me heart emojis at lunch. Still curling around me at night like everything was normal. Thursday morning, he left for what he called an early client meeting. I watched from our bedroom window as his car disappeared around the corner. Then stood there for another 5 minutes to make sure he wouldn't circle back for something forgotten. The house felt different when I was alone with my suspicions. Every corner seemed to hold secrets. Every drawer might contain evidence. His laptop sat on his desk in the home office, closed but not locked away. Alex had grown comfortable in his deception, careless with his tools. I opened it and faced the password screen. My fingers hovered over the keys. Our anniversary date? Nothing. His birthday? Nothing. I tried variations of our street address, his mother's maiden name, even Eleanor 1952, in desperation. Then, almost as a bitter joke, I typed Victoria 2020. The screen unlocked. My chest tightened as his desktop appeared, cluttered with folders and files I'd never seen. His email was already open in a browser tab, logged in and waiting. The most recent thread was from Eleanor, sent just 3 hours ago. Janet seemed suspicious at dinner. Keep her calm until my birthday. After that, we can reassess the arrangement. My hands trembled as I scrolled through their correspondence. Dozens of emails dating back 18 months, creating a timeline of deception. Eleanor coaching Alex on what to say when asking for money. Tell her it's for my arthritis. She won't question medical needs. Leo joking about his investment portfolio funded by his brother's brilliant long-term strategy. But the document that stopped my heart was a Google spreadsheet titled Operation Keep Victoria Afloat. The columns were meticulously organized. Date, amount received from C, actual distribution, cover story told. My name appeared like a punchline throughout. C believed medication story. C didn't question roof repair. C too busy with work to notice. I photographed the screen with my phone, then remembered Alex could check browser history. I needed to be smarter. I forwarded everything to my private email account, the one I used for online shopping that Alex didn't know about. 23 emails, 14 attachments, one devastating spreadsheet that detailed exactly how my money had been divided. Of the $42,000 I'd sent over 18 months, only $15,000 had actually gone to Eleanor and Arthur. The spreadsheet showed it clearly. Occasional payments for legitimate expenses, just enough to maintain the cover story. Victoria had received $12,000, marked as Boutique Recovery Fund and temporary support during transition. Leo's $8,000 was labeled Investment Opportunities, with notes about cryptocurrency losses and sports betting debts. The remaining $7,000 was marked Administrative Costs, Alex's fee for managing the con. I sat back in his chair, my professional pride wounded almost as much as my heart. I caught fraud for a living. I'd saved clients millions by spotting discrepancies others missed. Yet in my own home, I'd been blind to a conspiracy that involved my husband's entire family. The shower was still running upstairs. Alex took long showers, one of those habits I'd once found endearing. 20 minutes minimum, sometimes 30 if he was thinking through problems. I had time to dig deeper. His sent folder revealed messages to Victoria. Not love letters. Something worse. Business-like updates on her financial support. This month's payment will be delayed. Clara's getting suspicious. Need to be careful. Asterisk Victoria's replies, grateful and oblivious. Asterisk, thanks, Alex. Tell your trust fund manager I appreciate the help during this tough time. Asterisk trust fund manager. They told Victoria the money came from Alex's fictional trust fund. I printed everything. The printer whirring like my racing thoughts. Bank statements from our joint account showing every transfer. Screenshots of the Google Doc, the email threads. By the time the shower stopped, I had 40 pages of evidence tucked in my work bag. I closed the laptop, my heart pounding as I heard Alex's footsteps overhead. By the time he came downstairs, hair still damp, I was at the kitchen table with my coffee and the morning news on my tablet, looking like any other Thursday morning. Beautiful, he said, kissing the top of my head. Sleep well. Like a baby. I lied, not looking up from my screen. The rest of the morning was agony. Alex hummed while making his breakfast, complained about traffic reports, kissed me goodbye with the same lips that had been lying to me for 18 months. After his car pulled away, I called in sick to work. The first time in 3 years. I sat in my car in our driveway, windows down despite the April chill, spreading the printed pages across my passenger seat. With a yellow highlighter, I marked every lie, every diverted payment, every false emergency that had separated me from my money. The roof repair Eleanor claimed cost $3,000. No contractor records, no permits filed with the city. Arthur's emergency cardiac medication? The pharmacy had no record of the prescription. The apartment maintenance Alex said was urgent? Their building hadn't had any work done in 2 years. According to public records, I pulled up on my phone. My phone buzzed. Alex checking in, like the devoted husband he pretended to be. Asterisk hope you're feeling better, babe. Love you. Asterisk I stared at those 2 words that had once meant everything. Now they felt like part of the con. Emotional manipulation to keep me docile and generous. I texted back a simple thanks, then blocked his number temporarily, so I could think without interruption. Maya answered on the second ring. My college roommate, now a paralegal specializing in financial crimes. A coincidence that now felt like fate. Clara, how are you? It's been too long. I need your help, I said, my voice cracking for the first time all morning. I think my husband and his family have been stealing from me. Oh, honey, come over right now. Maya's apartment was a 20-minute drive that I made in 15. She answered the door in sweats, her laptop already open on her coffee table. I handed her my folder of evidence and watched her expression shift from concern to shock to professional anger as she read. Clara, this isn't just theft. This is wire fraud. Conspiracy to commit fraud. When you cross state lines with electronic transfers based on false pretenses, it becomes federal. Federal. The kind where people go to prison. Your husband could get 5 years. Eleanor and Leo could be charged as co-conspirators. She pulled up legal databases on her laptop, showing me similar cases. You have everything documented. This is a prosecutor's dream case. We spent 3 hours building a comprehensive file. Maya helped me create a timeline, organize evidence, and prepare an affidavit. She also gave me advice I didn't want but needed to hear. Don't confront them alone. Don't give them time to coordinate stories or destroy evidence. And whatever you do, don't let them know you know until you're ready to use it. Eleanor's birthday dinner is Saturday. I said, an idea forming. The whole family will be there. Maya smiled grimly. Public confrontation means witnesses. Smart. But Clara, are you ready for your marriage to end? Because there's no coming back from this. I thought about Alex's password, Victoria 2020. For years after their breakup, she was still important enough to be his digital key. I was the woman who paid the bills, but Victoria was the one encoded in his memory. Our marriage ended 18 months ago, I said. I just didn't know it yet. Friday passed in a blur of forced normalcy. I went to work, analyzed portfolios, attended meetings, all while my evidence folder sat locked in my desk drawer like a loaded weapon. Alex texted throughout the day, casual check-ins that now felt like surveillance. Asterisk, how's your day going? Want Thai food tonight? Mom's excited about tomorrow. Asterisk, each message, Another manipulation, another performance in our theatrical marriage. That evening, he found me in the bathroom applying mascara for our traditional pre-birthday dinner date night, his arms wrapped around my waist from behind, his chin resting on my shoulder as we looked at our reflection. "You look beautiful," he murmured against my neck. "Mom doesn't deserve you at her party." The irony of that statement made me bite my tongue until I tasted copper. Saturday arrived, gray and drizzling, the kind of April day that couldn't decide if it wanted to be winter or spring. I dressed carefully, professional, but not threatening. The navy dress Alex always said made my eyes look incredible. If this was going to be my last performance as the beautiful daughter-in-law, I'd look the part. The drive to Queens felt longer than usual. Alex filled the silence with chatter about his fictional client meetings, upcoming projects that would finally stabilize his income. His hand found mine at a red light, squeezing gently. "Thank you for being so patient with my family. I know Mom can be difficult." 3 years of difficult, I said quietly. "It'll get better. She just needs time." Time? As if 18 months and $42,000 hadn't been enough. Eleanor's apartment building loomed gray against the darker sky. We climbed the 3 flights slowly. Alex carrying wine and flowers while I carried my purse, heavier than usual with my phone fully charged and recording app ready. The stairwell smelled of cabbage and old carpet. Someone's television blaring through thin walls. Alex knocked rather than using his key. Our ritual, choreographed like everything else. Eleanor opened the door wearing her best dress, the purple one she saved for church and special occasions. Her face lit up seeing Alex, then dimmed slightly, registering me behind him. "There's my birthday boy." She pulled Alex into a hug that lasted uncomfortably long, then turned to me with that practiced smile. "Clara, you came?" "Wouldn't miss it, Eleanor." The apartment had been transformed. Her good china was out, the table extended with the leaf she only used for holidays. Streamers hung from the ceiling, and the smell of pot roast competed with her aggressive lavender air freshener. This wasn't just a birthday dinner. This was an event, a production. Leo was already sprawled on the couch, beer in hand, that expensive watch catching the light every time he lifted the bottle. He'd styled his hair and wore a new shirt, playing the part of successful young man rather than unemployed gambler living off my transfers. "Clara." Arthur rose from his recliner, genuine warmth in his tired eyes. He looked worse than last week, grayer, more fragile. "You look lovely, dear." Chloe arrived minutes later with her husband, Ben, who immediately parked himself in front of the television with Leo. She hugged everyone except me. I got an air kiss that missed by 6 inches. "Victoria sent a card," Eleanor announced, waving a pink envelope like a trophy. "Isn't that thoughtful?" Even with her busy new position, she remembered. She read it aloud. Every word a deliberate knife. Asterisk, "Dearest Eleanor, happy birthday to someone who's been like a second mother to me. Thank you for all your support during my difficult times. Love always, Victoria." Asterisk, Alex's jaw tightened. He knew this was too much, even for Eleanor, but he said nothing. Just opened wine bottles while I arranged appetizers nobody would eat. Dinner was Eleanor's greatest performance yet. Story after story about Victoria's accomplishments, each one presented directly to me like evidence in a trial. Victoria's promotion at the nonprofit. Victoria's volunteer work with disadvantaged youth. Victoria's natural ability to make everyone feel special. Unlike some people who just throw money at problems, that last comment made Alex flinch, but still he stayed silent. The cake came out, grocery store yellow cake with thick sweet frosting declaring, "Happy 72nd Barbara" in purple script. We sang while Eleanor basked in attention. Her eyes locked on mine during the entire song like a predator watching prey. After she blew out the candles, after the obligatory applause died down, Eleanor set down her cake server and turned to face me fully. The room felt suddenly smaller, everyone leaning in slightly like they'd been waiting for this moment. "You know, Clara," she began, her voice carrying that false sweetness that preceded every insult. "I've been thinking a lot lately about compatibility, about how some people just fit, while others never quite manage it." Alex grabbed my hand under the table, not in support, but in warning. Eleanor continued, each word carefully chosen. Victoria understood Alex in a way that was special. They had this connection, this natural rhythm. She knew what he needed without being told. She made him better just by existing. "Mom," Alex said quietly, but she raised her hand to silence him. "I'm just being honest. Clara deserves honesty, doesn't she?" Eleanor's smile was razor-sharp. "You try, dear.
We can all see you try.
But you'll never be as good as Victoria. You'll never measure up to what she and Alex had. Some things just can't be forced." The room held its breath. Leo smirked behind his beer. Chloe studied her cake with fake intensity. Ben kept watching football. Arthur stared into his coffee like it held escape routes. And Alex sat there, my hand in his, and said absolutely nothing. That's when I heard my own voice, steady and clear. "Then tell Victoria to pay all your bills. I'm done funding your lifestyle." The words landed like grenades in the silent room. Eleanor's triumphant smile froze, then crumbled into confusion.
What?
"What money? We never got a single dollar from you." The lie was so brazen, so absolute, that for a second I wondered if we were all living in different realities. But then I saw Alex go pale, saw Leo's smirk die, saw Chloe's eyes widen with panic. I pulled out my phone with deliberate calm, opening my banking app with steady fingers. "Should we review the transfers, Eleanor, or would you prefer to maintain this fiction that you've never received money from me?" "I don't know what you're talking about," Eleanor stammered, but her voice had lost its edge. "January 2023, I began, my voice carrying the same professional tone I used presenting to clients. $2,400 for Eleanor's arthritis treatment. February 2023, $2,300 for apartment repairs. March 2023, $2,500 for Arthur's medication." Each month fell into the silence, like stones into water. April, May, June. The numbers adding up while faces around the table transformed. Eleanor's confusion shifted to something else, something like fear. Leo set down his beer with a shaking hand. Chloe pressed herself back in her chair, as if trying to disappear. July 2023, $3,000 for emergency roof repair. August, September, October. Should I continue? 18 months of transfers, Eleanor. $42,000 total. All carefully documented. All sent to Alex for your supposed medical expenses. Arthur's coffee cup rattled against the saucer as he set it down. His voice, when it came, was barely above a whisper, but carried the weight of mountains. "Alex, did you give us Clara's money?" The question hung in the air between father and son like a blade, waiting to drop. Alex's mouth opened and closed, searching for words that might soften what was coming. His face had gone the color of old paper, and his hand released mine to grip the edge of the table. "It's complicated," he finally managed, the words barely audible. "Uncomplicated," I said, my voice steady as granite. Alex looked around the table like he was searching for allies, but found only waiting faces. Even Eleanor seemed to hold her breath. Whether from fear or anticipation, I couldn't tell. "Victoria reached out to me 6 months after you and I got married," he began, his words tumbling out in a rush. Her boutique was failing. She'd invested everything, her savings, loans from friends, maxed out credit cards. She was going to lose her apartment. "So, you gave her my money," I stated, not asking. "It wasn't supposed to be like this." Alex's voice cracked, revealing the boy beneath the man. "Mom said she thought we all believed Victoria just needed time to get back on her feet. That she and I were meant to be together, and you were." "I was what, Alex?" He couldn't meet my eyes. "Convenient. Stable. Someone who could help during the transition." Transition. There it was. The word that reduced our entire marriage to a temporary arrangement, a bridge between Alex's past and his supposedly inevitable future with Victoria. "You knew." I turned to Eleanor, whose face had transformed into something I'd never seen before. Not the sneering superiority I was used to, but something harder, more calculating. You orchestrated this whole thing. Eleanor straightened in her chair, and when she spoke, her voice had lost all pretense of sweetness. Victoria and Alex belonged together. Anyone could see that. You were never supposed to be permanent, Clara. You're too cold, too focused on numbers and careers. Victoria understood family. She understood what Alex needed. What he needed was my money. Apparently, your money was the least you could contribute. Eleanor shot back, her mask completely gone now. I taught Alex exactly how to approach you, when to ask, how much to request, what stories would work. Every month, we'd review what worked and what didn't. Clara responded well to Dad's health issues. I'd tell him, use that angle more. Ben had muted the television. Even the neighbor's TV seemed quieter, as if the entire building was listening to Eleanor's confession. You coached your son to defraud his wife. Arthur's voice was barely recognizable, thick with something between rage and grief. I coached him to secure his future, Eleanor corrected, lifting her chin with astounding pride. Victoria is his soulmate. Clara was just a stepping stone. A well-paid stepping stone who could fund Victoria's recovery and their eventual reunion. Mom, stop, Alex pleaded. But Eleanor was beyond stopping. 3 years we've been planning this. 3 years of enduring your presence at my table, pretending you belonged here. Every dinner, every holiday, watching you sit in the chair that should have been Victoria's. But we knew it was temporary. Once Victoria was stable, once her business debts were paid, Alex could divorce you and be with the woman he actually loves. Each word was a calculated blow, delivered with the precision of someone who'd been rehearsing this speech in her mind for months. The strange thing was, instead of feeling destroyed, I felt oddly liberated. The mask was off. The pretense was over. This was the real Eleanor, the real family I'd married into. Arthur's chair scraped against the floor as he stood, his whole body shaking. You let me work double shifts. You let me skip my heart medication. You watched me nearly collapse from exhaustion. All while you were stealing from Clara to give to that woman. We weren't stealing, Alex protested weakly. It's marital assets, community property.
Why?
I cut him off. To commit fraud? To document false expenses. I pulled out my phone again, scrolling to the Google Doc screenshot. Should I read from your own records, Alex? March 15th. Told C the roof was leaking, actually for Victoria's rent. April 2nd. Asterisk Dad's medication story worked perfectly. C didn't question the amount. Asterisk Leo, who'd been silent until now, suddenly knocked over his beer bottle trying to stand. The liquid spread across Eleanor's good tablecloth, but nobody moved to clean it. This is insane, he muttered, his eyes darting toward the door. I thought the money was from Alex's consulting. Mom said he was doing really well. Doing well? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Your brother hasn't had a legitimate client in 8 months. That watch you're wearing, that motorcycle? Paid for with money I sent for your father's heart medication. Leo's hand went automatically to the watch, a Rolex that gleamed under the dining room light. Mom said Alex gave me an investment opportunity. Cryptocurrency. I was going to pay it back when it went up. $8,000, Leo. You took $8,000. That was supposed to keep your father healthy. I didn't know. Leo's voice pitched high with panic. Mom handled everything. She said it was family money that we all deserved to share. A share of what? Arthur's voice boomed, making everyone jump. I'd never heard him raise his voice before. A share of theft. A share of fraud. My own family conspiring behind my back while I worked myself into the ground. You were never supposed to work those extra shifts, Eleanor said, her tone shifting to irritation, as if Arthur was ruining her carefully laid plans. If you just accepted that we needed help. Help? This isn't help. This is theft. Grand larceny. Wire fraud. Arthur's face had gone from gray to red, veins standing out on his neck. Chloe finally spoke up, her voice small. I didn't know about the money, but I knew about Victoria. Alex has been meeting her for coffee every week. Sometimes dinner. I thought Clara knew. Another piece clicked into place. All those client meetings, those networking events, those late nights at the office. How many were actually spent with Victoria? Every week. I asked Alex directly. He nodded miserably. We needed to coordinate the payments. Make sure her creditors were being paid in the right order. It was business. Business. I repeated. Is that what you call it when you password protect your laptop with her name and the year you met? Alex's head snapped up. You went through my computer. Victoria. 2020. Really, Alex? Not even creative enough to use something that wasn't about her. Eleanor stood up, trying to regain control of her narrative. None of this matters. Victoria and Alex will be together eventually. You can't stop destiny, Clara. You were always just convenient. Yes, Eleanor. You've made that crystal clear. The convenient fool who funded your son's ex-girlfriend's lifestyle while you all laughed behind my back. We never laughed, Alex said quietly.
No.
Then what do you call the family group chat I was never added to? The one where you all discussed how to manage Clara, how to keep me comfortable but controlled. Alex's silence was all the confession I needed. I reached into my purse and pulled out the folder Maya had helped me prepare. Thick with evidence, tabbed with colored sticky notes, professional as any case file I'd presented at Sterling and Finch. You want to know what this is? I set it on Eleanor's birthday cake, right in the frosting. This is 18 months of wire fraud, documented and verified. Eleanor reached for the folder, but I placed my hand on top of it. Not yet. First, you're going to listen. I opened to the first tab, holding up the printed emails for everyone to see. Email from Eleanor to Alex. February 12th. Asterisk, tell Clara the roof is leaking. She won't verify with the landlord. Asterisk, email from Alex to Leo. March 3rd. Asterisk, mom says you need $8,000. Clara thinks it's for dad's medication, so act accordingly if she asks. Asterisk, you had no right to read private emails. Eleanor started, but her voice had lost its power. Actually, I had every right to read emails discussing how to steal my money. I flipped to the next section. Bank statements showing every transfer, $42,000 total. Each one annotated with what I was told versus where the money actually went. My attorney, yes, Eleanor, I have an attorney, calls this documentary evidence of conspiracy to commit wire fraud. Attorney. Alex's voice cracked. Maya Brennan, specializing in financial crimes. She's reviewed everything. I pulled out my phone, showing them Maya's contact information. She's waiting for my call. One word from me, and this becomes a federal investigation. The room had gone so quiet, I could hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen. The neighbor's television playing a game show through the walls. Someone's footsteps in the apartment above. Federal. Leo whispered, his face draining of color. When you use electronic transfers across state lines based on fraudulent pretenses, it becomes a federal crime. Alex could get 5 years in prison. Eleanor and Leo, as co-conspirators, could face 3 years each. Prison. Leo's expensive watch caught the light as his hands trembled. But I didn't, Mom said. I cut him off. You took $8,000 that you knew came from somewhere suspicious. You participated in family meetings about managing Clara. You're on the group chat discussing how to keep me from discovering the truth. That's conspiracy. Eleanor tried to rally. You're bluffing. No prosecutor would take this case. We're family. We were family, I corrected. And prosecutors love cases with this much documentation. But here's the part you're really going to hate, Eleanor. I paused, savoring the moment before delivering the blow I'd been saving. Victoria knows everything. The silence that followed was beautiful. Eleanor's mouth fell open. Alex's head snapped up. Even Arthur, who'd been staring at the table in silent rage, looked at me in surprise. That's impossible, Eleanor said, but uncertainty colored her voice. 2 days ago, I contacted Victoria, sent her screenshots of the Google Doc, the emails, everything showing where Alex's mysterious trust fund money actually came from. Would you like to hear her response? I pulled up the email on my phone, reading Victoria's words aloud. Asterisk Clara, I'm absolutely horrified. Alex told me the money came from a family trust his grandmother left him. I had no idea it was coming from you. I'm willing to return what I can and testify about what Alex told me. No woman deserves to be treated this way. Asterisk, she's lying. Alex said desperately. Victoria wouldn't. Victoria has more integrity than this entire family combined. She's already sent me records of every payment she received, thinking it was from your fictional trust fund. She's prepared to sign an affidavit confirming you lied to both of us. Eleanor sank back into her chair. The purple dress that had seemed so regal now making her look like a deflated party balloon. The queen of manipulation realizing her chosen princess had switched sides. But the best part, I continued, pulling out a printed text exchange. Victoria sent me screenshots of Alex's text to her. Asterisk, don't worry about paying me back. My trust fund is huge. Grandma wanted me to help people I care about. Clara doesn't know about the trust. She might feel weird about me having family money. Asterisk, I looked directly at Alex. You lied to everyone. To me about where the money was going. To Victoria about where it came from. To your parents about, actually, I'm not sure you told your parents any truth at all. Ben had abandoned all pretense of watching TV, staring at the unfolding disaster with his mouth open. Chloe was crying silently, mascara running down her cheeks. Arthur's hands were clenched into fists on the table, his knuckles white. So, here's what's going to happen, I said, pulling out the documents Maya had prepared. 1. Alex signs this post-nuptial agreement acknowledging the $42,000 debt. Eleanor and Arthur sign these affidavits confirming they never received the money I sent for their expenses. Leo documents every cent he took and agrees to a repayment plan. Everyone cooperates, and this stays a civil matter. Option 2. Eleanor asked, though she clearly didn't want to know. Option 2, I call Maya right now. She contacts the FBI tomorrow morning. They freeze your accounts, investigate your finances, and you explain to federal agents how you orchestrated 18 months of wire fraud. I spread 3 documents on the table, pushing aside birthday cake plates and Eleanor's anniversary china, a post-nuptial agreement for Alex, affidavits for Eleanor and Arthur, a financial disclosure for Leo. This is extortion, Eleanor said weakly. This is consequence, I corrected. Something none of you have faced before. Alex reached for the pen with a shaking hand. If I sign this, what happens? We divorce. You repay the money from your retirement fund and future earnings. You stay out of prison. You get to keep your professional reputation. What's left of it? Without a federal fraud conviction. Alex signed his name, each letter looking like it physically hurt him to write. His signature, which I'd once found so elegant on our marriage certificate, now looked like the scrawl of a defeated man. Eleanor took the pen next, her hand trembling so badly she could barely hold it. I never thought. No, you never thought I'd find out. You never thought the convenient fool with a paycheck would figure out your scheme. She signed, tears finally breaking through her composure. Not tears of remorse. Eleanor wasn't capable of that. Tears of rage that her perfect plan had failed. Leo signed quickly, eager to make this nightmare end. His Rolex caught the light one last time as he pushed the document back to me. Arthur was the last to sign, and when he looked up at me, his eyes were red-rimmed. Clara, I'm sorry. I didn't know. I know you didn't, Arthur. You're the only innocent person at this table. I gathered the signed documents, placing them carefully back in my folder. The evidence of their conspiracy, now joined by their written confessions. I stood, picking up my purse, feeling lighter than I had in 18 months. Wait, Eleanor said, trying one last manipulation. Family doesn't do this to family. I turned at the doorway, looking back at the wreckage of Eleanor's birthday dinner. The cake with evidence folders crushing its frosting. The signed confessions among the china. The family that had conspired against me now turning on each other with accusations and blame. Family doesn't steal from family either, I said. Happy birthday, Eleanor. I walked down those 3 flights of stairs and out into the April drizzle, leaving behind the wreckage. My phone started buzzing before I even reached my car. Alex calling, texting the family group chat I'd never been part of, suddenly desperate to include me. I turned the phone off completely and sat in my car, rain pattering against the windshield, feeling something between exhaustion and exhilaration. The drive home was surreal. The same route I'd taken with Alex, just hours earlier. But now I was alone, my marriage effectively over. My evidence folder on the passenger seat like a silent witness to what had just happened. I stopped at a red light and caught my reflection in the rearview mirror. My makeup was still perfect. Not a tear shed. Strong or numb. I couldn't tell. Maya was waiting at my house when I arrived, sitting on my porch with a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. "I figured you'd need this," she said, standing to hug me. "How did it go?" "They all signed." I held up the folder. Every last one of them. We sat in my kitchen, soon to be only my kitchen, while I recounted every detail. Maya took notes, already planning the next legal steps. "File for divorce Monday morning," she advised. "Strike while they're still scared." Alex showed up at midnight, using his key one last time. I was still awake, expecting this. He found me in the living room with Maya, who'd stayed for protection and witness purposes. "Clara, please, we need to talk," he begged, his face puffy from crying. "Talk to my attorney," Maya said coolly. "And leave your keys on the table. This is my house, too." "Not after Monday," I said. "You signed a post-nuptial agreement acknowledging debt and fraud. No judge will let you stay here." He stood there in our doorway, my doorway, looking like a stranger. Had he always been this small, this pathetic? Or had I just been too in love to see it? "I loved you," he said quietly. "You loved my paycheck," I corrected. "There's a difference." Monday morning, Maya filed the divorce papers while I went to work. Rachel, my assistant, took one look at my face and brought me extra strong tea without asking questions. By noon, the news had somehow spread through the office. Not the details, just that I was divorcing Alex. My boss, Evelyn, called me into her office. "I heard about your situation," she said carefully. "Do you need time off?" "No," I said. "I need to work. I need normal." She studied me for a moment. "There's a senior partner position opening next month. I wasn't going to mention it yet, but given everything, maybe focusing on your career would be good for you." Alex was served at his parents' apartment that afternoon. He called me 17 times before I blocked his number. Then Eleanor started calling from her landline, leaving voicemails that progressed from pleading to threatening to sobbing. I saved them all. More evidence just in case. By Thursday, Alex had liquidated his retirement fund. $30,000 appeared in my account with a memo. Partial payment per agreement. The remaining $12,000 would come in monthly installments of $500, though I doubted I'd ever see all of it. Leo texted me that weekend. "Lost my job because of you. You never had a job." I replied, then blocked him too. The real surprise came 3 weeks later. Victoria called, her voice tentative. "Clara, I know this is weird, but I was wondering if we could meet. I have some things to tell you." We met at a coffee shop downtown. Both of us awkward until Victoria said, "So, we both married into the Whitmore dysfunction," and we burst out laughing. "Technically, I never married in," she corrected herself. "Thank God." Victoria showed me years of emails from Alex, dating back to their relationship and continuing through my marriage. The recent ones about his trust fund were just the latest in a long pattern of lies. He'd been lying to her throughout their relationship, too. About his job prospects, his family's financial situation, even about why they broke up. "Eleanor told me you cheated on him," I said. Victoria nearly spit out her coffee. "What?" "He cheated on me with my roommate." Eleanor knew. She helped him cover it up. We sat there for 3 hours, comparing notes on covering lies, realizing how deeply we'd both been manipulated. When we finally stood to leave, Victoria said, "We should do this monthly. Like survivors group therapy." Our first official dinner was at an Italian place where we toasted with expensive wine I could finally afford since I wasn't funding Alex's family anymore. To Eleanor's matchmaking skills, Victoria said, raising her glass. She wanted Alex to end up with me so badly, she forgot to ask if I wanted him back. "What did you tell him when he reached out after the birthday disaster?" I told him I was testifying in your civil suit and to lose my number. The civil suit was Maya's idea. Since they'd all admitted to the fraud in writing, we could sue for damages beyond just the stolen money: emotional distress, financial manipulation, conspiracy to defraud. Maya listed, building her case. Alex's consulting business, already struggling, completely collapsed when word got out about the fraud. Apparently, clients don't trust financial consultants who steal from their spouses. He moved back in with Eleanor and Arthur, sleeping in his childhood bedroom at 34, surrounded by high school trophies and memories of when he had potential. Eleanor, according to Chloe, who still texted me occasionally, had become unbearable to live with. Without my money cushioning their lifestyle, she had to face the reality of their situation: a fixed income that barely covered rent, no savings, and a son who couldn't support himself, let alone them. Arthur was the only one who showed genuine remorse. 2 months after the birthday disaster, he sent me a letter, handwritten, formal, the way his generation communicated important things. Dear Clara, it read. I've spent weeks trying to find the right words. There aren't any. What my family did to you is unforgivable. You deserved better from all of us, especially from me. I should have protected you. Instead, I benefited from their crimes while remaining willfully ignorant. I'm deeply sorry. I helped Arthur apply for Medicare assistance programs, sending him information about prescription coverage he qualified for but didn't know existed. He never asked. I just did it. Not for Alex or Eleanor, but for Arthur, who'd been as much a victim as I had been. His Christmas card arrived in December. Just a simple store-bought card with one line written inside: You deserved better from all of us. No request for forgiveness, no manipulation, just acknowledgement. I kept Arthur's Christmas card on my refrigerator with a magnet shaped like a sunflower. The only reminder I allowed myself of the Whitmore family. January arrived with snow and silence, the kind of peace that comes after surviving a hurricane. My new routine was simple: work, therapy, and learning to be alone without feeling lonely. Dr. Morrison's office became my Wednesday sanctuary. She was a small woman with silver hair who never rushed our sessions, even when I spent 20 minutes sobbing over how I'd missed such obvious signs. You weren't blind, Clara. You were trusting. There's a difference, she said during our 3rd month together. Your instinct to help family in need wasn't wrong. Their exploitation of that instinct was. We unpacked everything. My need to be the perfect wife. The way I'd rationalized every red flag as a cultural difference or temporary situation. I analyze million-dollar portfolios, I told her one afternoon. I catch fraud for a living. How did I miss this in my own home? Because you weren't looking for it there. We don't audit the people we love. The anger came in waves. Some days I'd be fine, focused on work and moving forward. Then I'd see a couple holding hands at a coffee shop, and rage would surge through me so hot I'd have to leave. The humiliation was worse, knowing that for 18 months, an entire family had been laughing at my expense, calling me convenient, planning my replacement while spending my money. The grief is real, too, Dr. Morrison reminded me. You lost the family you thought you had, the marriage you believed in, the future you'd planned. Let yourself mourn. February brought news through the grapevine. Chloe still texted occasionally, unable to resist sharing family drama. Eleanor's arthritis had flared severely. Without consistent treatment, she could barely open jars, struggled with stairs. The bitter part of me felt vindicated. The human part remembered that I would have gladly paid for her medication if they'd just been honest. Leo had found work at an Amazon warehouse, night shifts that paid $15 an hour. He'd sold the motorcycle, pawned the watch, moved into a studio apartment that Chloe described as depressing. His restitution payments arrived monthly, $200 that probably meant he was living on ramen and hope. Alex tried dating, according to Chloe. 3 first dates that never led to second ones. He doesn't understand why women ghost him after they Google him, she wrote. Mom keeps telling him it's their loss. The wire fraud documentation I'd filed with the divorce had become public record. Any woman with basic internet skills could find it within minutes. Alex Whitmore, financial consultant who defrauded his wife. Not exactly dating profile material. March marked 6 months since the birthday confrontation. Victoria and I had our regular dinner at a Thai restaurant. Our friendship evolving from shared trauma to genuine connection. She'd started dating someone new, a teacher who knew her whole story and didn't care. He actually thanked Alex, she laughed. Said if Alex hadn't been such a disaster, we'd never have met. That night, Victoria suggested something that changed everything. We should help other women. How many are out there right now funding their husbands' secrets, thinking they're crazy for being suspicious? We started small. A Facebook group called Receipt Keepers for women who suspected financial abuse in their relationships. Within a week, we had 50 members. Within a month, 300 women sharing stories that echoed mine. Money disappearing, elaborate lies, family conspiracies. I wrote our first guide, Red Flags and Financial Abuse. Victoria contributed, When Family Becomes the Enemy. We fielded questions, reviewed bank statements, helped women document their suspicions. What began as processing our own trauma transformed into something larger. My promotion to senior partner came through in April. Evelyn called me into her office with champagne. Your handling of your personal situation showed remarkable professionalism, she said. You turned a crisis into education, helping protect our clients from similar schemes. That's leadership. The raise was substantial, more than enough to cover what I'd lost to the Whitmores. I celebrated by buying a new apartment, smaller than the house I'd shared with Alex, but entirely mine. No memories in the walls, no ghosts in the corners. Moving day was emotional. Victoria helped, along with 2 women from Receipt Keepers who'd become real friends. We painted the living room a soft blue, hung curtains that Alex would have hated. Arranged furniture without considering anyone else's opinion. This is your revenge, Victoria said, looking around the space. Living well, helping others, becoming who you were meant to be without them. May brought an unexpected message from Arthur. Not a letter this time, but an email through the Receipt Keeper's website. Clara, I wanted you to know that I've left Eleanor. Living with my brother in New Jersey now. The birthday dinner opened my eyes to more than just the money. Thank you for showing me the truth, even though it hurt. I'm getting help for my health through the programs you suggested. I read it 3 times before responding with a simple wishing you health and peace. Eleanor's empire had truly crumbled. Without Arthur's social security supplementing their income, without my money flowing in, without Leo contributing. She was alone with Alex in that apartment. 2 people who'd built their relationship on deceiving others, now stuck with only each other. By June, Receipt Keepers had become a registered nonprofit. We held our first in-person workshop at the community center, teaching women how to track finances, document suspicious activity, and protect themselves legally. 30 women attended. 3 were actively planning exits from abusive financial situations. You saved my life, one woman told me after showing me spreadsheets she created based on our template. I thought I was paranoid. You showed me I was right. Standing in my apartment that evening, windows open to the summer air, I thought about revenge. It wasn't the dramatic confrontation at Eleanor's birthday, though that had felt satisfying. It wasn't the legal documents or the recovered money. It wasn't even watching their lives fall apart without my financial support. Real revenge was this: transforming pain into purpose, building a life they couldn't touch, helping other women avoid my mistakes, creating a chosen family of survivors who understood that documentation beats gaslighting every time. Eleanor had been so wrong about one thing in particular. She'd said I was too cold, too focused on numbers and careers. But those very qualities, the analytical mind, the attention to detail, the insistence on documentation, had saved me. And now they were saving others. My phone buzzed with a Receipt Keeper's notification. Another woman joining. Another story shared. Another person learning that suspicious feelings usually mean something. And receipts never lie. I thought about Alex, probably sitting in that apartment listening to Eleanor complain about her arthritis. About Leo heading to another warehouse shift. About the family that had united to deceive me, now fractured beyond repair. Then I closed the notification and made dinner in my kitchen, in my apartment, in my new life. Eleanor was right about one thing. I'd never be as good as Victoria. I was better. I was free.